welcome everybody to Strategy Week. Today, we've got a great panel. Kate Booth, Morgan Melnick, and Heather Ilsley, are here. We'll talk about, I think it's one of the most interesting conversations of the week. Not to take away anything from anyone else, but this is just a fascinating conversation about loyalty and such a great panel. I wish you could have all been listening to some of the recordings we've done because it's been an amazing, or practice sessions we've done prepping for this because it's been amazing. So I'm really excited about this. We've got a whole bunch of partners I wanted to thank. I won't name them all by name, but I do want to just say thanks to all the partners and sponsors. Really sincerely, we couldn't do these events without them. One of the things that I just want to reiterate as much as I can is that we're trying to make Calgary known as a world-class marketing community, and to do that means bringing in experts like we've got on the panel here. Today's actually a good representation of that, because this morning we had somebody from Ireland come in and talk about AI and how he's using it there, and fascinating conversation. Equally as fascinating is going to be this conversation on how we perceive loyalty and what that means for driving business growth. So we're doing a lot, and I think there's a lot of smart people that are here in Calgary that have got a lot of great things to say about that topic. More of an administrative thing. There's been some questions around that I've been getting around how to get registered for these events. Typically, the biggest thing we've been finding is that people just haven't signed up an account or created an account. So we'll send out in the as a follow-up this recording, and you'll get access to this image. But if you're running a corporate account and you haven't had a chance yet to add members, this is a great way to do it. Or you can transfer your primary member role there. We are also running a survey for trends, so marketing trends. And if you haven't had a chance to fill this in, please do take a shot of the QR code here. Open up the survey and finish it up whenever you get the chance. What we're looking for is a better understanding of the things that are affecting you. We've got a lot of things that we're wondering about, like budgets going up and down, how AI is impacting your role. There's a whole bunch of things in there that we're going to turn into the the trends presentation in November, and then later we'll turn that into a thought leadership piece that we'll produce later on next year. So your opinions are really, really valuable, and love to have that in here. Webinars, we still have quite a few left, and so you're welcome to sign up. There's going to be a great one tomorrow with Claire on Shift Happens. It's a really, really amazing story and a really good approach. I totally recommend that you take a look at that one. We have a workshop on AI this afternoon, which is where I'm sitting, getting ready for that. And today, though, as I mentioned, we've got a great panel here talking about the 5X fallacy, what cheaper loyalty strategy is limiting growth. And really excited to have everyone here join. So I'm going to pass it over to Morgan. Morgan will introduce everybody else, and Morgan, take it away.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me, Mark, and the Calgary Marketing Association. I do think that we are world-class marketers here in Calgary. Quick introduction for myself. Morgan Melnick. I'm a Senior Director of Marketing at M&P, and really it's not about me today. I just got to ask some fun questions of our great panelists. Before I get to introducing them, I just wanted to set the stage on our topic that we're going to be discussing today, which I think all of us on the webinar today are going to be really excited about, around the 5X cheaper to retain myth and why is it being challenged. So what is the 5X cheaper to retain myth? First off, it's the idea that retaining customers is 5 times cheaper than acquiring new ones, which has widely been quoted and is being recently being questioned. Originating from a non-empirical thought experiment, the claim lacks solid data and oversimplifies some of the customer economics. So there are 2 competing views that we kind of talked about as a group leading into this webinar, and that was shared with us with this topic as well. So from the B2B Institute, their thinking is that the myth is flawed, based on outdated anecdotal evidence. Growth really comes from acquisition, market penetration drives loyalty, and not vice versa, and that advertising should be the focus on acquisition. We spend a lot of time talking about that as marketers, and that retention is a product and a customer experience issue, or an area that they need to be focused on. Amber-based, different point of view, is retention is cost effective, especially in recurring revenue models. It's all about a balanced strategy. Acquisition fuels growth, retention builds loyalty and efficiency. And marketing should support both, using data to guide investment into both areas. So really, our conversation is going to talk about a lot of this and some of the insights from our panelists. So I'll throw it over to our panelists to introduce themselves, since they'll do a better job than myself. First up, Heather.
Yes, so thanks for having me. My name's Heather Ilsley. I have a fractional marketing leadership consultancy called Karma CMO, and I just tend to work with brands both B2B and B2C. And yeah, I'm excited to chat on the panel and have a really good debate today.
Absolutely. Pedro.
Hi, everybody. My name is Pedro. I'm the VP of Strategy at Cult, and spent most of my career both on the client side of the business, on CPG brands, as well now on the agency side of the business. So I spent a lot of time thinking about the topic of today. So I'm very excited to unpack it.
And last but definitely not least, Kate.
Hi, yeah, I'm Kate Booth, president of RMG here in Calgary. And we have a company that runs loyalty programs, specifically focused on SMB throughout Canada, as well as an advertising company that supports getting brands messaging out there and making sure that we're speaking to the right person at the right time. And yeah, excited to chat with you guys about this.
From those intros, all three of you guys, well, really all four of us, all care about loyalty to varying degrees. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So with that, let's just talk about loyalty. Let's get started. Before we start getting into that myth, let's level set on a definition of loyalty. How do you define loyalty, and really what does loyalty mean to you? And I think let's start with Heather.
Okay. So, I mean, there's many different ways I think to approach this, right? I am not shy about saying I'm heavily influenced by Byron Sharp and the learnings that have come out of the Ehrenberg Bass Institute. So, he would define it as like an outcome of mental and physical availability. For me, I think like true loyalty is really selecting one brand over another, even if alternatives exist that they might be more convenient or perhaps a little bit less expensive or even maybe better suited to the customer. So I think loyalty is kind of making those choices, perhaps when it is not, when it's a bit irrational to do so.
I like that. Pedro?
Yeah, no, I think Heather and I are pretty much aligned on the Ehrenberg Bass Institute kind of thinking. And I think loyalty is an outcome of frequency of purchase, right? And so when I think about loyalty, I see it as being derivative of market penetration. So brands that are bigger have more market penetration. They will have slightly higher levels of loyalty because they're more easily available to be purchased, and people know who they are, right? And so it's that frequency of purchase, and then obviously as we're going to start kind of going down this path, levels of loyalty or levels of frequency of purchase, they are dependent upon the category. So if we think about a car company, obviously a person buys a car every 5 to 10 years. That is a very different frequency than somebody that buys, potato chips, which is a, weekly kind of purchasing behavior. But, what you see is bigger companies have, maybe a few fraction points higher, in that frequency than others because people buy them again. So I think that's kind of how I would define this, and without getting into attitudes about the brand, which I know we're going to be talking about as well.
We'll get there, Pedro. Don't worry. I like potato chips and cars, so I totally get that. Probably loyal to both of those categories. What about you, Kate? What are your thoughts about loyalty? What does it mean to you?
Yeah, I think we're all aligned on what loyalty means, how loyalty is leveraged and how it's created or built within a customer base. Differs business to business, and how a company acknowledges loyalty differs. But loyalty is created with the trust of a brand first, and what motivates the consumer to interact with that brand. How the business creates that loyalty, creates that, in building their reputation and building that credibility across their network or across their customer base, is obviously really important in how and why. To Heather's point, customers are going to be irrational in their decisions and choose to, go out of their way to purchase that one specific product. So how they create the loyalty is one thing. How they leverage that loyalty and use it going forward in a positive way is something different that a lot of businesses, I think, miss the mark on, and there's lots of opportunity for them to improve.
Yeah, I agree. I think it all comes down to trust, is a view on loyalty, and it just helps build out from there. Well, it sounds like we're all aligned on loyalty, so that's fun. Let's get into the more debate side of it. So that's good. Loyalty, we can chat GPT or search, definitions, but I like hearing from the experts. But let's get into the myth: loyalty versus acquisition, and feel free to jump in and chat on other comments that the panelists are making. Don't wait for me to throw it around. All good there. First up, so loyalty versus acquisition. I kind of queued it up a little bit in that intro there. You have to choose one. Which do you choose and why? Let's start this time with Kate.
Sure. So I would say that businesses should be focused on reaching new buyers first, and then use loyalty programs or loyalty tactics to keep them engaged with the brand. By focusing on that new buyer or acquiring those new customers, they're obviously getting the transaction, they're getting the excitement around their brand, they're getting the awareness around their brand. And then from there, it's up to them to actually keep them loyal. So I would say it's acquisition first before you can build up that loyalty base.
Pedro, what are your thoughts? Acquisition or loyalty? Only one.
Well, as a marketer, I would like to have it all. But I would say if I had to pick, obviously acquisition. I think there is a very simple kind of thought experiment that you can make, that kind of the math kind of checks out. I mean, loyalty is still very important, especially in the way that Kate was talking, like how do you build brands so people keep using your brand, and that is all about making sure your product is exceptional. But acquisition, if you take a category, right, you have, let's say, 5 brands, A, B, C, D, and E. And then, the top brands, the bigger, like the bigger brands are A, and then B, the E is the smallest brand. Let's assume you're a brand manager of brand E, and the churn in the category every year is about, I don't know, 10%. So let's say if you have 10 customers, you lose 1 customer a year, whereas brand A that has 1,000 customers loses, 100 customers a year. And so if you're brand E, should you invest your money in retaining that 1 customer or going after the 100 customers that brand A lost? Right? And that simple thought experiment tells me that acquisition has a much higher ceiling than retention in this context. But in the real world, of course, you're gonna optimize your budget accordingly. Like, it's not, don't ignore it, retention, of course, but just understand how to maneuver your budget to maximize the dollars that you have to spend.
Makes sense. Heather, you only get one.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think I have much to add. I would say, like, it depends. It always depends on your objective, right? And I'm assuming our objective is growth here. If your objective is growth, then yeah, I'm on team acquisition all the way. I think exactly what Kate and Pedro have outlined, like retention just can't move the needle to the same degree because things like, defection or repeat rates, like they follow these category laws that correlate really highly with penetration. So I'm on team acquisition.
Well, there's less of a debate on this one. So team acquisition all the way for growth. I get that too. Now I'm going to challenge it a little bit. There's just too much alignment on this debate. Is how about when you have really strong, like a large customer base, right? Whether it's B2C, B2B, it doesn't probably really matter. You have a large customer base. Do you want to keep that and grow within it? Do you want to cross sell? Do you want to sell more products? Do you want to not necessarily make sure they're buying repeat products, but do you have more ability to grow the share of wallet with them? And does that, make for an effective, growth strategy? It's different than net new acquisition of a net new client. What would you guys think about that?
Yeah, I'll jump in. So, like loyalty, especially in our loyalty business, it takes a lot to get one of our new partners onboarded. It takes a lot from time, team, effort to get them launched and help manage their program. So when we look at filling our funnel, acquiring new customers, it's definitely how much are we putting into that customer, that individual customer. Not only so that they get value, but also to retain them. So it really, and both Heather and Pedro have mentioned this, it really does depend on what we're actually delivering, what the product is or service is. If it's just a transaction, then, you know, acquisition is definitely the leader. If it's a service related transaction or a service that is more of a partnership, then maintaining that loyalty, providing that value, bringing, you know, being that trusted advisor is what we call it on our team, making sure that we're actually, you know, stepping up to that client is going to be really important from a loyalty perspective going forward. So that's where loyalty definitely plays a piece, is making sure that you do keep them, but keep them in a meaningful way to your business. So it does come down to being, you know, what makes sense for your business, what makes sense for what you're offering.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, no, I would add here, and I think share of wallet is super important. And I think, like, you know, share of wallet is I mean, there's a lot of Apple users here. Apple is kind of the golden child of loyalty. And for very, you know, the reason why people are so loyal to Apple is for very strategic reasons, right? Particularly North America and Europe. But if you look at the global South, you know, the loyalty of Apple is not that high because people can't really afford it, you know, when you think about it. They might have phenomenal attitudes towards Apple, but they can't really buy it, right? Where that's where you kind of see Samsung kind of, you know, taking the bigger piece of the pie. Now, okay, so let's talk about share of wallet. So pretend you're Disney and you are making a movie every, let's say a Star Wars movie every 5 years, right? What you can do is, yeah, you can expect people to come watch your movie once every 5 years and leave it at that. But then what do you do in between those 5 year cycles, right? What you want to do is you want to grow your share of wallet. So you go and you develop a mini series about Luke Skywalker, or you go and you put your Star Wars property on a Disney theme park so people can go there in the summer, or you create a video game that people can play, or you create merchandising, you know. So all those different things increase the share of wallet that the consumer will have with the Star Wars brand, right? And so those are strategic choices that you have to make, especially if you have a very low frequency category like movie making. You know, you make a movie once every 5 or 10 years, like, you know, depending on the studio, you know, you make a lot more movies. But I think growing share of wallet is super important. And I mean, I'm curious, like, how do we like is a bigger share of wallet? Could that be considered an, you know, like loyalty? Like, can people that spend more with the brand, are they more loyal to the brand, or they just, you know, have more disposable income to spend with the brand?
Yeah,
So
well, I think that's a good question itself. My take on that one would be loyalty is probably tracked differently. Share wallet really goes back to that growth, right? Like how much value are we getting out of that customer from a marketing standpoint, caring about the ROI. But curious to obviously Heather's thoughts as well.
Yeah, well, I think in the case of, you know, like you're saying, like, oh, is it, like we need to be thinking about physical availability as well, right? Like, is someone able to, I don't know, access Disney Plus, or can they go to the theater? Like, there's so many different factors that I think are kind of weighing in here. You know, and if you do create your series, say in the case of Disney, like say it's Disney Plus and they're driving subscriptions for it, they'll be targeting existing customers for sure, but they're also going to be attracting new customers because they need both to sustain. So I think, like, from a targeting perspective with your targeting strategy, your existing customers, that could be a layer, right? You might take your first party data and you may say, okay, we're going to message directly to them. We're also going to build lookalike audiences to try to find others that are similar to them. Then we're also going to have like a broad reach strategy where we're going to try to get to, you know, all available buyers. So I think it's like there's nuances and there's many different ways. Yes, you want to grow share of wallet, but for each of those other services or products, you are still looking to attract new customers in addition to offering it to your existing. So I think, yes, I'm on team acquisition for growth, but I'm not saying loyalty is not important. It is important. They do need to work together.
Oh, it totally makes sense to me. And I think Well, I agree. I think both are really important. It's about where customers or targets are at in the journey, right? And all of the value and the trust that you build as a brand with them. So it's really important. So fine, we're pro acquisition, but loyalty is still really important. Now, convince me why the 5x fallacy is a fallacy, and why should I or the other webinar participants or recording, watching attendees care? And Pedro hasn't gone yet, and I just like that he picked Star Wars over Marvel, so I guess he can answer this one next.
Well, I do like Marvel, Morgan. Don't get me wrong. I'm a huge Spider-Man fan, so
That's only one part of Marvel, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I'm loyal to Spider-Man. Yeah, I mean, why is it a fallacy? I think I kind of go back to that thought experiment, that I share. It's like, let's say if you can go after one customer versus 100 customers that are up for grabs in the category, and talking to one individual customer that's already an existing user, in a way, you're trying to convince that person not to leave your brand, right? And so it's more of a damage mitigation. Like, you don't want to lose those dollars, whereas you can then take your money and go after 100x the 100 other customers that are for grabs. The thing about loyalty that I find interesting is it kind of falls on a curve, right? So you have hyper loyalists that will spend tremendous amount of money on one brand, and this is typically what you see with loyalty programs, actually, right? Loyalty programs, what you're typically going to see is people that have a loyalty card for a brand, they spend more per trip than a person that doesn't have it, right? But are they spending more because they have the loyalty card, or do they have a loyalty card because they're spending more, right? So so it's difficult to prove, but although I think there's been some research behind this already that kind of says they have a loyalty card because they have more, they spend more, right? And what you see is that person is a heavy category buyer, so they're going to have a loyalty card across every brand in the category, right? And so it kind of looks similar for all competitors. So no, I think high level, I would say it is definitely cheaper to talk to going after acquisition of new dollars than retaining existing dollars.
Oh, go ahead, Heather. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I think it's tricky too when you look at like loyalty, right? You have all this data, you can serve them these offers. Come back into the store, we'll give you whatever, here's a discount, or spend a certain amount, whatever, we'll give you free shipping. I think it's important too to evaluate like the cost of providing that offer and that incremental lift, because they may have gone into your store anyway. It might have been the offer that brought them in. It might have been they were going in anyway, and then the offer like increased their basket size. And there are people that are loyal, like speaking, I guess, from a previous life. When I was agency side, we had a client, this was like a large retailer, and there was a section of people that were just not price sensitive at all. They would purchase often. And if you look at like the ROAS for investment with on those campaigns, you could send out an email campaign, but sale messaging, this brand decided we are not going to show sale messaging to price insensitive consumers, because from a margin perspective, it's in our interest to do so. So I think, depending on, are you bringing someone back with the offer? What's the cost of that offer? And making these decisions based on evidence and incremental lift, because many of those sales might have happened anyway. We just don't know. There's so much that we don't know, and tracking is not making it easier.
There's so much data. But Kate, what are your thoughts on the fallacy?
Yeah, I think the fallacy is definitely slightly outdated. I think in thinking that the way we motivate and communicate to customers has stayed the same over the last decade, I think is definitely something that needs to continue to be rethought. We've spoken about the data, and that is like so incredibly important to how we're framing the message and who we're speaking to and what the offer is. So to Heather's point, is that customer coming into the store because of an offer, because of a loyalty currency, or are they coming into the store because that's just where they want to go, or it's most convenient for them? For whatever reason that they come into the store, we want to use some kind of an offer to motivate them to spend more. But what the data is going to show us is what we need to do, or how rich of an offer it needs to be to make that person spend more often, right? So that's where the data really does come into play. And that data is accessible and it's inexpensive if you review it and actually know how to pull the stories from it and use the data to properly communicate some kind of a message to motivate a change in behavior or motivate that spend. So I would say that how we're thinking about spending, and like from a marketer's perspective, how we're thinking about trying to attract new customers, and where we're spending those dollars is definitely shifting. And the information that we have, there's tons of it, and it can be incredibly overwhelming. But the stories are there to help businesses speak effectively and efficiently, and a lot of the time very inexpensively to their customer base, to motivate that change.
I feel like the story talks about how I spend money. All of this conversation. Do I have multiple loyalty cards? Yeah. Do I like the points? Am I completely loyal because of it? Who knows? I need to go home and think about it now. So it's very accurate, right? Why do I spend more money in some places than not? But I loved your comment, Kate, not to throw it back to you right away, but just building on yours and Heather's kind of both comments around data and insights, right? Like, what are some examples of some of those data stories that you can find that can help influence how to motivate or activate, to your point, loyalty from your customer base?
Yeah, well, so within our business, we have access to solutions that actually help us identify who customers are and better understand not only, their demographic, but then also their spending behaviors and when they're looking at specific product or service, and what message we should be delivering and when, to make sure that we're actually speaking the right message that's going to resonate with them. In looking at that data and having that data, we're then able to turn around and communicate an offer to them that's going to be the most relevant, that they're going to act on. So you speak to having multiple loyalty programs in your wallet, not as aggressive as the US in all of their loyalty programs. But Canadians were definitely acquiring more loyalty programs, making things a little muddy. So, are you going to be influenced by, one program over another? Quite possibly. Are you going to drive a little bit further to one gas station versus another?
Probably
Might not be, maybe not, you might not, but others may. They may drive,
Yeah.
Pardon?
I said touche. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like some may make an awkward left turn into a gas station versus someone that's right there because of that currency. I think our, life is not exactly inexpensive these days. And so consumers not only are brand loyal, but they're also looking for that something extra. And when a business shows that they understand and are willing to acknowledge that they need to give their customers something extra, I think that they will come out on top and be able to influence the consumer's decision to do business with them.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. Well, just the value of that relationship there. I think it just speaks to exactly what you're talking about. Heather, what are some of your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, I really do echo a lot of Kate's thoughts. I think it's almost becoming like a cost of business. Like, people want to be rewarded for their purchasing behavior. And and it's built in, right? If a business has a rewards program, like, it is kind of built into the cost. So I think many people are not just loyal to one rewards program. People are often buying from multiple brands, and we'll have multiple rewards programs. Like, I have Aeroplan, I have WestJet. You could argue I'm more loyal to WestJet because I purchase from them more often, but I think this is a highly rational decision because Air Canada has pulled out largely of the West. Like, their schedule is not as robust as WestJet. So I'm not going to inconvenience myself and have to take a non-direct flight or something like that. Like, even though I want, if I fly with Air Canada, I'm absolutely going to put in my Aeroplan number so that I can earn rewards. But in that instance, the loyalty program is not necessarily dictating my purchase decision, but I still want to be rewarded when I do purchase.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I will avoid a milk run flight run at all costs, regardless of loyalty or points. So I definitely can relate to that. What about you, Pedro, on convenience versus loyalty and kind of data to be able to track or influence how to act on loyalty?
Yeah, I mean, I think what both Heather and Kate have both said is just, yeah, like they hit the nail right on the head. I would even maybe use another example here, like with Delta Airlines. I know they basically took a look at their customers and their the consumption behavior, and they noticed that the customer is actually over-indexing consuming Starbucks relative to other coffee chains. So they went ahead and they struck a partnership with Starbucks, and now you can actually collect points interchangeably between Delta and the Starbucks rewards. And so I'm not sure if that's still going, but I remember at the time that was kind of like an aha moment. It's like, okay, like you can actually, if you look at your customer journey fully, what are all those touch points that you as Delta could influence? And or maybe have your little moment of showing up. If you take a flight once a year, let's say, like, can you show up at can you reach that consumer more often if you partner with Starbucks, and vice versa? Starbucks got the benefit of being able to serve Starbucks at Delta flights, right? And so you start seeing now some of these loyalty programs and companies partnering it up, bringing their data together, right? And really mapping out the customer journey to increase value overall. And I think that's the true unlock there. Like, talk about growing, share of wallet, and being able to then, me as a, PetroPoints member, being able to use, my points at Canadian Tire or vice versa. Of course, PetroPoints and Canadian Triangle Rewards partner up. Like, those types of things are huge unlocks for brands.
I definitely like Starbucks and flying. So, and I think Air Canada has that same relationship too. And I think they have one with Uber now. So yeah, like just expanding some of those loyalty programs. We had a question in the chat from Dean around whether we compare a review lifetime value versus cost of acquisition, customer acquisition costs, when it comes towards putting dollars towards campaigns. So it kind of bridges the gap between our conversation about reporting, metrics, analytics, data, and budget. So what are your guys' thoughts on that lifetime value versus cost of acquisition, and spending it differently between retention and acquisition?
I can just quickly kind of throw my 2 cents in here. I think that whenever I look at cost per acquisition, I kind of take a look at my existing lifetime value, and I say, okay, what's a third of that? That is as high as I'm willing to go for cost per acquisition. And I think that's a pretty safe math that will get you, pretty good results, because, you see this with banks. Like, banks are willing to spend hundreds of dollars to acquire a new customer, but because their lifetime value, it's huge, right? But okay, so how do you increase your pain tolerance for cost per acquisition? How can you, accept a higher cost per acquisition? Well, increase your lifetime value, right? And so how do you increase your lifetime value? Well, expand your product offerings into white space, innovate, right? Like, make sure you're building your brand, like brand building. Like, people forget that. Like, I know that LTV and CAC are like both sort of performance marketing metrics, but ultimately they're extremely dependent on the power of the brand, right? Stronger brands will have higher lifetime value because people are more inclined to think of them in the moment of purchase, and more inclined to find them, right, whenever they need to buy it. So I think they should be looked at together, and I think CAC is a derivative of your LTV.
I like that. Heather, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I agree with everything that Pedro has said. I think too, not just looking at how to increase like lifetime value, but also looking at what are things that you're doing or that you can do to decrease customer acquisition cost. And so things like looking at the targeting on your creative, right? Like, now algorithms have really kind of commoditized targeting to such a degree that creative. I'm really banging this drum on creative is the new targeting, because there's so much bad creative out there. And so, right, you're not just competing within your category, right? Like banks are not just competing with other banks, they're competing for whatever else is in your feed. And so to get your attention, I think the average view on TikTok is like 1.5 seconds, the average. So people are so quick to just move on to that next piece of content that I think looking at ways that you can decrease customer acquisition costs, improving your creative, looking at your media buys as well to see like what percentage of your buy are you investing in, like how much of it is impacted by fraud, taking a look at where you're kind of placing those buys, those types of things. So it's really taking a look at the full like ecosystem of your acquisition ecosystem and understanding like where you can find efficiencies.
Okay, what are your thoughts on lifetime value and cost per acquisition? Customer acquisition
Yeah,
cost?
I think it's part of it, right? I think it's like I think Pedro's calculation of like a third, like as a good rule of thumb, that's a good one. The thing is that most people are buying from multiple brands anyway. Most, that's why banks for them, like the checking account, right? They want to be your primary bank, but maybe they'll get another product from you. But the reality is that most people are consumers of multiple brands. So churn is always going to be part of it. I think you need to plan on that and look for ways that you can increase efficiently because people are going to defect.
Absolutely. Kate, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, totally agree with both Pedro and Heather. It's creating that stickiness, whether it's like adding on an additional product. So the bank is a great example, opening up additional accounts. With Pedro's example of Delta and Starbucks or Aeroplan and Starbucks, it's creating that stickiness to the brand and another reason to interact with them. And not only does the consumer benefit from those different offers and promotions that draw them back to both the airline and to the coffee shop, but it increases not only brand awareness with the companies, but also increasing that transaction size and commitment to do those two actions together. You're walking through the airport, you grab your coffee. So I totally agree with kind of the formula as to how to where you're spending your dollars. It's where you're spending your time and effort going forward once you've actually got them. That I think both Heather and Pedro have addressed as well. It's really using loyalty in the right way and motivating that consumer behavior or influencing someone to try a new product and increase that share of wallet is going to be hugely important. So how can you do it in a way that's going to be cost effective? How can you do it with an affiliate partnership like Starbucks Delta, and really create that stickiness with that client base to retain them so that you're not having to spend additional dollars to find someone else?
I totally agree. And speaking of stickiness, this is the best segue into, are there any brands that any of us have that we might just be rationally loyal to? Like beyond any shadow of a doubt, is there a brand that I would just love too much? And I do, Pedro already said it earlier because he knows my irrational brand, and it's Apple, where I just love all the things that they do. I think they're great. Will I spend more money on them because I like them? For sure. Is that good or bad? Who knows? But I am definitely irrationally loyal to them. I think their marketing is great. I like their brand. I like the value. I think they clearly built a lot of trust with me. I like the ecosystem. Doesn't mean that their products are better. Who knows? It's up for debate. I would say Apple would win that debate, but who knows? But less about me. What are some of your guys' irrational brands? Who are you irrationally loyal to? Whoever wants to go first.
Yeah, I can go. So there I'll give you two examples. I am extremely loyal to Safeway. Okay. Not irrationally, very irrationally, because they're right by my house. And so when they look at their data, they're gonna see me. I am probably an extreme loyalist. I go there 2-3 times a week. But an absolute zero, that's a behavioral loyalty that I have with them. Attitudinal loyalty that translates into behavioral loyalty for me, I would say it's like The Economist, right? Or this types of like publication. I remember I was irrationally loyal to the New Yorker for a period of time, even though I was young and I couldn't understand a single article that they were writing because they were so literary and I couldn't understand. But I just loved the vibe of the New Yorker. I felt like it was a side of me that I wanted to portray to the world. But I'm no longer a New Yorker subscriber. I still have a ton of respect for them, much more of an Economist. And you look at the Economist now, they are doing exactly what we're talking about. This week they're launching the Economist Insider, which is a video platform within their app. So it's no longer little shorts that you get to watch on their platform, which they also did. Now it's like full 45-minute shows. And so they're now getting you to spend more time on their app than in other apps. And I am the full extent of the Economist kind of subscriber. I get the magazine delivered to my house. I'm on the app. I attend the webinars. I think they're fantastic.
And they have an Apple TV app, so that would definitely work for the videos. That totally makes sense. Kate, what about you? Who are you irrationally loyal to?
I would say when traveling, irrationally loyal to Starbucks, and I think my team would definitely attest to that. It's what keeps me going, hugely convenient, and just exactly what I need to walk out the door and get moving on meetings every day. So I would say that one would be one. I'm definitely motivated by the points. I think I've created monsters in my children with the Starbucks stars. Because they tend to want to pay for their own whenever we're there. But yeah, I do believe it's an amazing brand. I do believe that they created quite the reputation around their brand. And it keeps me going. So it definitely helps out. But there's lots of other brands that I'm definitely loyal to. I wouldn't say I'm going to go out of my way a lot of the time. But the point currency within some of the loyalty programs definitely makes me committed to them because of the discounts or the added benefit that I get from that loyalty program.
Would you walk farther in an airport to get a Starbucks than a different coffee brand?
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
See, there you go.
Yeah, like fumbling with bags and all. Yes, for sure.
So would I, by the way.
Yeah, that's the irrational part about it.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
How about you, Heather? Who are you?
Yeah.
Loyal, addicted, whatever word we want to use to.
Right. So you guys know I struggled with this in the prep call because I was like, I'm raised by engineers. I feel like I'm a rational person. I do I've got spreadsheets for everything. But the one that I've settled on is Peloton. I do not have a piece of Peloton equipment. I want one desperately, but I have like a subscription to their app, and I love all of their content. I use it for like strength, so yoga, meditation, walking, hiking, running, like so many different different things. Like I follow the instructors on Instagram. And they could hike the price of the membership and I would happily pay it because I feel like it has really transformed my life. Like I have Peloton friends that I've never met in person before that, you see and you can like high five, and they've created this community and it's like very inclusive. Like they have an instructor that just has one arm, and it is incredible what this guy can do. They've got body sizes of all different types. They just put out like perimenopause and menopause content. Like they're really listening to their community, and I love it. Like I have the hoodie. Yeah, like for 230 weeks, I'm Pelotoning. Like I think I'm almost at 3,500 workouts. Like I love it. So there are other options out there. I could work out for free with someone on YouTube. There's probably instructors that I could find and like, but I just love everything that they're doing. So that's my one.
Sounds like a Peloton party. Like it's a nice virtual party. You've made some friends. I love it.
I have a problem. Like it's a bit much.
See, we all have a problem with all the ones that we selected, except for Pedro, because he doesn't want to walk past Safeway, right, to any other grocery store. But all the other ones make a lot of sense. Now, does loyalty ever go too far? Are we too loyal to, maybe not these examples, but does loyalty go too far? I'll leave it with that.
So I can jump in. So we've worked with a few different loyalty programs, coalition loyalty programs across the country, and merchants that are issuing partners. So companies that are rewarding their customers or their employees with that currency. Loyalty programs and how they're leveraged, it can be taken too far and become ineffective in the original goal of the loyalty program and why it was originally introduced. So you take, the example of doing a multiplier offer on a product. You can actually, like a company can actually do too big of a loyalty offer, and it costs too much, and it, erode the margin and not actually influence in a way that the business is wanting it to. Or the customer would be influenced by a smaller offer, just the same as something bigger. Where loyalty programs have also gone too far is looking at some kind of a multiplier offer and having totally active, and I think we've, coined it avid collectors or members of a program where they go in and completely clear the shelves of that one product because the offer is so rich and valuable. And then people have, orange juice and steel wool because of the bonus offers for the next decade available in their pantry. So when it comes to the consumer side of things, the program can influence in ways that may not be really the intention. For loyalty programs as a whole, a loyalty program and loyalty programs in Canada have definitely evolved over the last few years and have really shifted how they're speaking to the customer and how they're rewarding the customer and through what channels. A lot of them have gone from, traditional loyalty rewards program to something that's more standardized, or a card link offer where, the consumer has to, make that connection between either a credit card and a program, or a merchant and a program for them to actually earn. So I think, the data's there that, you're still capturing the transaction level data, but is the program actually still influencing the same way that it did before? And is that even still the goal of a loyalty program? So I think there's different ways to look at it.
Definitely makes sense. Heather, Pedro, does loyalty ever go too far?
I would say, as long as you're staying within the guardrails of financial sense. I know that there's a famous show on Netflix, like Pepsi, Where's My Jet? I know that wasn't like a loyalty program, but it was a contest that it was an air with, the small print. But I remember, even at Pepsi, we used to know that if we put our Pepsi products next to our Frito-Lay products in the grocery store, basket size grew by 45%, on average. So, in a way, it's not a loyalty program, but you're trying to grow basket through, getting your consumer to purchase multiple things from your company. I think that a great example that I always like to give is the recent tariff wars that's been taking place between the United States and Canada. In the first quarter of the year, there was a huge push to buy Canadian, right? And what you saw that is actually people were going out of their way to buy Canadian. There was obvious loyalty to their country, right? That is the highest form of loyalty, probably just after, loyalty to your family, that a person typically will have, or loyalty to religion or whatnot. But what happened was, after a few months, Loblaws ran a study and they realized that Canadians, they were loyal to the Canadian products, but not as loyal as we thought they were. They were willing to spend maybe 5% more for a Canadian product instead of an American. So even in the end of the day, there is still a remnant of rationality when it comes to loyalty, that, hey, does the price make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and Kate mentioned earlier about affordability, right? And that helps influence buying behavior, right? And all of that, and obviously loyalty as a result. But Heather, what about you? What are your thoughts on, does loyalty ever go too far?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to be able to add anything new. That I think both Kate and Pedro did a great job of really summarizing it. I mean, it doesn't matter what I think, right? It's what the data says. So if your data is suggesting that you're getting diminishing returns, then yeah, it's gone too far.
And that's what I would expect from an engineer who loves Peloton, would be the data is going to lead the discussion. It totally
I'm
makes.
not an engineer. I'm just surrounded by them. So
Oh, right, there you go. You're too creative to be an engineer. That makes way more sense. But you love spreadsheets, and so do I. So it's all good. I think we're coming almost up to time, so we want to before we have our panelists give kind of their closing thoughts here, do a live poll, and if Mark, you can hopefully facilitate that, that'd be great. So scan the QR code, please, and thank you. Basically, we want to know is, are you convinced that the 5x loyalty myth is limiting growth? And your options are yes, no, or you're still unsure. And who knows, based on the conversations today. And maybe while we complete the poll, we'll let, or Pedro, you came off. Do you have a comment?
No, I think we didn't do a good enough job of convincing people here that 5x is No, I think there's some questions here on the chat that we can maybe attack.
I think we answered the question, except for Mark's question is of how many.
I just read that. That's a me problem. I think. Sorry, everybody. I think I put it down as less, but it should have been. Do you believe it costs 5 times more? So to keep accustomed to make one. Maybe we'll never know the answer to what everyone thinks. If everyone could just put a chat in, a comment in the chat, I think we proved that Slido works. We didn't prove that I know how to write a question properly.
All good. Yeah. So if there are any other questions, I know there's some comments around loyalty programs in the chat. We went through Dean's already, but if there's any other questions, actually, maybe there is one here from Kate here at the bottom. Kate, did you ask a question in the chat?
No, I actually was just responding to Mark. So one of his questions was, how many loyalty programs am I actually a part of? And so, we define active or avid in a program versus someone who's just a passive registrant or member. And so, I'm loyal to about 4 of them, and then there's probably around 15 that I have signed up for one reason or another.
Yeah, I can kind of relate to that too. I can think of 1 or 2 that I would say I'm pretty loyal to, and then same, we kind of go wherever the deals are, convenience and availability. Yeah, it totally makes sense to me as well.
Yeah, for me, that question was just, I actually have a loyalty program. I'm a registered loyalty member for every grocery store I go to. I just don't go to all the grocery stores the same amount of time.
Yeah.
But I would use the card every single time I go.
No, it definitely makes sense. I can relate to that too. It sounds like Kate can too. I think Kate's beating me on loyalty programs for grocery stores. She wins. But before we throw it back over to the CMA, let's give our panelists one last chance to, briefly, leave any lasting thoughts for the attendees on loyalty or the myth of 5x. And maybe we'll start with Heather.
Yeah, I guess my final thought would be, I mean, they're both important, right? But for growth, like the research is very consistent and clear. If your objective is growth, you should be focusing on trying to earn repeat attention. It's not to say you should not do loyalty, but your primary focus should be on earning repeat attention.
Love that. Pedro.
Yeah, no, I would say that if you are a brand, depending on where you are in your product life cycle, in your category life cycle, one is going to play more of a role than the other. If you're a very mature brand, you're trying to grow share of wallet. If you are an up-and-coming brand, you're trying to gain more market penetration. I think it really depends on the situation. But ultimately, I still believe that acquisition is the path to growth. Meanwhile, delivering an exceptional product or service experience is how you're gonna get those repeat customers. And then if you layer on a loyalty program on top of it, now you can actually collect data on those customers and use that to improve your product. And all of a sudden now you have like that flywheel that you can use to continue to make a product even better.
If Apple had a loyalty program, I would be so screwed. Um, even more loyal, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Kate, what about you? What are your lasting thoughts on loyalty?
Yeah, so I agreed. If we're focused on growth, growth is, acquisition led, but loyalty supported. And obviously being in the cat or the industry that I'm in and supporting loyalty programs, I am a true believer that loyalty can create consumer behavior change and increase and support a lot of business goals if used appropriately, if used properly, and the data that everyone is capturing these days needs to be used correctly. And in doing that, you're going to be getting the results that you're looking for. But I think it's really important that companies take the time to actually evaluate and assess, what their data is telling them and how they should be using it so that they can reduce those costs around acquisition and retention and really try and focus their efforts with the right message to the right consumer base and drive that growth that they're looking for.
Well, we do have two new questions in the chat before we wrap up here, if we still have time. It is from Lisa. Have you ever double dipped loyalty earning? I'll pose that to the group. Whoever wants to tackle that.
So just for reference, double dipping is essentially earning a currency, a rewards program. So Mark, from your grocery store, you might be earning the currency at the grocery store, but then turning around and using a credit card and earning points based on the spend on your credit card. So that's a really good way for a merchant to actually be able to promote some kind of a special offer and driving, additional spend within that store, all while promoting maybe an affiliate partnership between a program and a bank, an FI. So I think it's a really great way to motivate consumer behavior and increase in spend.
Yeah, I love that. Any other thoughts on that before we go to the next question? Got another question from Dean. Would you say loyalty is a great add-on to your marketing mix and not a standalone value product?
I would say loyalty is ingrained in the marketing mix, right? I think it's a metric as opposed to a lever, necessarily. So, when you think about the marketing mix, the 4Ps, product, place, price, promotion, that remains true. I think you can influence loyalty through, improvement in product, improvement in, distribution, right? Improvement in price, improvement in promotion. Like, I think everything can really have an impact on loyalty.
I would agree, and I think loyalty lives at the bottom of the funnel, the marketing funnel, right? So it's a part of it, all of it, right? It's retention and loyalty is definitely the last part after to make sure that you're providing great experience for your customers. So I definitely would agree with that too.
Yeah. Actually, I had one more question, if that's okay.
Go ahead, yeah.
Before I take over, I'm curious about how to use loyalty as a make good for, let's say, Pedro mentioned customer experience and so on and so forth. An example, subscription services. So like I had a membership to a gym. They're doing a whole bunch of renovations, and to punish us for doing all those renovations, they closed everything, but they also added like a couple dollars to my monthly subscription. So I said, hey, it's not really a customer loyalty. So I cut my membership and went somewhere else. How can like a loyalty program kind of be like a make good for something like that? And is that something that, marketers would be in charge of?
Yeah, companies do that all the time. So whether it's your example of a gym or whether it's through their call center and trying to, customer complaint resolution, they use a points currency, whatever their loyalty program is, to try and smooth over the experience for the customer, and reward them with added benefit, whether it's a point or whether it's a discount or a free month or, a free hoodie, whatever it might be. Yeah, businesses are always using that kind of tactic to try and make good with the customer. Comes down to, though, brand reputation and brand credibility and the value that a brand brings, and what the business wants that brand's outward appearance to be. And so what are they trying to cover up? Maybe They should be turning around and looking at the customer experience versus how they're going to solve it if it becomes a problem.
Right. Yeah. I guess it turns into like crisis communications rather than
Yeah.
like marketing's on the hook to fix this, right?
Yeah. You got it.
Gotcha. Cool.
Okay, you just gave me a new idea for a new webinar around whether brands have any or marketers have anything to do with making a brand, or if we're just the ones talking about what the brand should be.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry, Morgan. I'll let you wrap it up here.
No, well, I was going to throw it back to you guys. I was just going to say thanks to the panelists. I thought this was really engaging, but obviously I'll throw it back over to Derek and Mark at the Calgary Marketing Association to wrap it up.
Awesome. Well, yeah, thank you. Oh, let me just figure out how to do this. I think I did it right.
Yep.
Thank you so much, everyone on the panel. You're all very smart. I learned a lot. I took a lot of notes, which was fantastic. And even from some of the comments in the chat, they were great as well. Just wanted to put this slide back up here. So yeah, we have this trend survey. It takes about 10, 15 minutes to do. So if you've got 10, 15 minutes before you go back to work here, it would be great to get some of those insights, and some of those insights will be used for our trends report. And speaking of that as well is our annual trends event that's happening on Wednesday, November 19th at the National Music Center, Studio Bell, and that's brought to us by Stone Olufsen and Cantor Canada. And you can get your tickets at the calgarycma.com website. And thanks again for joining us for Strategy Week. We've got a great webinar tomorrow with Claire, who's going to be sharing something quite personal. And I think the story is super inspiring as well. So yeah, I would certainly schedule your lunch hour for that as well. And then other than that, Mark, did you have anything else to say?
That's all. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thanks,
well,
panelists. I really enjoyed that.
Thanks so much,
everyone.
guys.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Take care.
Thanks for having me.